just when the sailors thought that the worst was behind them, the Southern Ocean still packs a punch on this final little push up to the finish line in Melbourne that will conclude leg 3. There's some unbelievable battles happening out on the racecourse. We're going to be bringing you interviews with the teams who are right in the thick of it. Plus, at the end of the show, we're going to be talking to our race expert, Sam Matson. If you've got any questions, anything that needs answers, put them in the comments below and we will do our best to provide you with all the information that we have here in Volvo Race Headquarters. So before we dive into the teams, let's have a look at the tracker and see how it is that the race is unfolding right now out in the Southern Ocean. Vestas 11th Hour Racing have got a battle on their hands with Team Brunel. This is the race for 3rd place. So what do you do when you're under pressure? Well, you go dark. Stealth mode activated. Behind them, Sun Hunkai Scallywag and Turn the Tide and Plastic still could see some position changes here, but it's Mafre in the lead who are looking very comfortable over Dongfeng Race Team. They are set to keep charging ahead all the way into Melbourne and the finish line tucked up right inside the harbour. Well, that stealth mode move by Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Team Brunel hot on their heels. Why do you do it? Why is it that you choose to go dark? And is it going to work for you? Well, we caught up with navigator Simon Fisher to get his thoughts.
We use stealth mode when there's something going on tactically, and it's a shame that people get to miss it. But yeah, sure, you know, Brunel have been chasing us hard the last few days, and by virtue of being behind us, have always had a slightly better angle, and obviously that's been applying a bit of pressure. But obviously the jibe last night and our moment to come back to the north has been quite important. So you know, we thought by going in stealth mode that makes things a little bit harder for them, and it will keep them guessing exactly as to where we are. So yeah, we've gone stealth mode, so yeah, we're currently invisible.
It must play a bit of a mind game with that boat. What is it that specifically you're hoping to achieve by this?
Basically, you know, it just makes things a little bit harder for them, really. There's some tactical options about how east-west you want to be when you start to head back towards Melbourne and towards the finish. And if they don't know where we are, then you know, they're forced to pick their own ley line rather than doing something sort of defensive or aggressive. You know, they have to kind of just put themselves where they think the best place is. So yeah, it's just really to ask the question of the other boat, and to be honest, we wouldn't have been surprised if they'd gone in stealth as well, just so we didn't know where they are, but they've chose not to so far, so that's good for us.
Well, you mentioned the approach into Melbourne. What's your take on what's coming up there?
So we got a couple of days left really, and you know, we're just pushing hard, trying to sail fast for the last bit while we're going straight, and then you know, as we get further north, we're going to be approaching the high pressure. There's a high pressure in the Great Australian Bight, which is going to be affecting things. It's going to give us a wind shift, so it'll be about picking the right shift, and then coming into the rip at the entrance of Port Phillip. And then once you get to Port Phillip, it's quite an interesting place. Obviously, the entrance is somewhere which is very, very tidal, can be very rough, but we'll see what we get when we get there. A few more jibes and tacks to go first, and a bit more tactical sailing.
Is it useful having Mafre, Dongfeng Race Team, further up the track?
It's always useful having someone ahead. You know, the nice thing about when we get the skids is we also get some wind data, and that's a real opportunity to sort of calibrate ourselves against the forecast. So that can be very useful.
There's a whole lot of Volvo Ocean Race still to go. How are you guys feeling about your performance so far?
Our goal is always to try and be on the podium, and we're going to certainly keep fighting for that for this leg, and then. Yeah, I know. I think we've been very happy where we're going. We're learning all the time. We're always improving. I think our performance is improving, and we're getting more out of the boat all the time.
So that's Simon Fisher, navigator on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and the game that they are trying to play with Team Brunel. But what about the leaders? Incredible last few days, and just finally we're starting to see a little bit of realization that they might have this in the bag. Here's the words from skipper Xavi Fernandez.
Well, it's looking that way, really. It's been a tough leg, though, and till yesterday or day and a half ago, it's been so tight with Dongfeng that we've been pushing so hard. Now it's true that whatever the reason, we stretch a lot, and we are now like 450 miles to go, so if we don't have any problem, we should be all good.
And can you just describe to us the feeling that you had when you were chasing down Dongfeng? A lot of people saying that it was follow my leader, but you guys looked like you were ready to pounce as soon as the Chinese-French team slipped up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things we have done the best in this leg, obviously, apart of pass them in that critical moment, was to always keep it tight. And sometimes to keep it tight, you just have to follow the leader, because he's obviously going from the first way. So you don't need to do any crazy thing and lose 20 miles, and then there's no way back. So I think we have fight very, very hard to keep it always close, all the options open, and then of course every jibe, every new system, every new weather is an opportunity for the guy behind, and we took it. So the feeling is good. The feeling was hard when we were chasing them, because of course this very strong team, very hard to catch, but we were happy enough of not being losing. And then again, once we passed them, the feeling is unbelievable. And right now, finger crossed, should be all good from here to the finish line.
Fairly safe to say that a team like Dongfeng Race Team demands the very best from any competitor in order to beat them.
Yeah, absolutely, and we know that, and that's why even when they went to stealth mode, you always worry, and you don't really know where they're gonna appear. This very fast boat is very well known from everyone, and they're very good bunch of sailors. So they have demanded a lot from us, and that's why I'm so happy. We've been always fighting hard to keep it close, which was a priority, and then take the opportunities, as I said before.
Well, Xabi, we know that a lot can happen in only a few miles, so the race is still on. We'll let you get back to it. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Relief for Xabi Fernandez to now have the Chinese-French team behind him and a few miles in the bag. This could be their leg here, all the way to Melbourne. But don't hold your breath, because there's still an awful lot of breeze battling the fleet right now. And to see just how tough the conditions are right now, here is some incredible footage coming in from Axel Nobel and Dongfeng Race Team.
It's a long day for us. Every watch is very long for us. Because we are into the pressure and up to 30 knots, so we need to stand by 2 hours. And last watch we have something that driving, so we select very nice. And this watch is still standby, but maybe we can sleep around 1 hour more. We are not driving now, and we don't have to sleep. But yes, very soon we go to Melbourne, so a little bit exciting, but a bit tired, yes.
What do you see when you take certain medication or don't operate this vehicle when tired or drowsy? Well, everyone's operating this vehicle tired and drowsy, so yeah, so the more rest you can get, the better the food. Hopefully you make smarter decisions, and you also can sail the boat better.
Tough sailing out there on the ocean with all the teams getting a little bit of a pounding right now from that breeze that's coming in. Now, as always, we have pulled up one of the race experts here to give us the lowdown on what's happening and get your questions answered. You've still got a little bit of time. Send in your questions. This is Sam here. Ask Sam is the hashtag. Get them sent in. First of all, I mean, we did expect a little bit of breeze to come in on this late stage, but I mean, it's hard work right to the finish here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been relentless for the fleet from the beginning, ultimately. A little bit lighter breeze now up in the north that we're starting to see Mapfre and Dongfeng get into. But, the boats down in the south, still in 30 knots of breeze now, absolutely pushing right to the finish.
Well, this is topical because we've got a question in here about sleep, and I'm just going to put this one to you now. Rex Brower just asked, how much sleep are they getting? Now, you're a solo offshore sailor. You've done the Solitaire de Figaro. That's typically sort of 7-minute stages. What about this one in the Volvo Ocean Race?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing for this is it's a kind of polyphasic sleep, so a lot of kind of...
Can you just say that again? Can you just say that?
Polyphasic sleep cycles.
Polyphasic sleep cycles, there you go.
They'll sleep for around 3 hours at a time, wake up, get on their watch, and then they're on watch for 3 to 6 hours, depending on how the boats are running it. And there's always a chance that in your off watch, you're actually going to be jibing, things like that, and that takes all the crew. So, you know, certainly for down the AEZ, when they're down the Antarctic exclusion zone, there wasn't much sleep for the teams at all, and the fatigue will be building for sure all the way into the finish, and they'll need some rest once they get into Melbourne.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a long stopover either, so you can expect to see some very tired sailors. OK, now let's go on to some of the questions that we've had coming in. We have got a lot of people asking about the finish line. We've got Dean McLean. Hi, can you tell us the exact location of the finish line in Melbourne? Is it somewhere inside the bay? Sarah Taylor asked the same question. Duncan Jewell, where's the finish line set in Melbourne? OK, Sam, we've got a little bit of a video here to show you the exact location. Just talk us through where this finish line is.
Yeah, OK. So if we come right in onto Melbourne here, they're going to come through the heads, right up into the bay and finishing right off the pier head there with a laid mark and the pier head right in the centre of the city. So great spectacle, and you know, even at night I'm sure it'll be pretty busy and a lot of people to welcome them in.
OK, moving on to the racing. So we've got one here about stealth mode. Tanya Poley asks, why Mafre don't opt for stealth mode? Their position now matters most for the whole fleet. And this is a bit of an interesting one. And I think, Sam, the big question for you is, how does stealth mode work as we get closer to the finish as well?
Yes, so the rules actually state that a boat cannot be in stealth mode when the first boat is within 200 nautical miles of a finish. Obviously, Mapfre aren't quite there yet. They're around 440 miles to go. But if they went into stealth mode now, their main rivals are Dongfeng here. So actually, you know, they've not really got much to hide. All they need to do is just concentrate on the finish line and trying to get forwards rather than trying to hide themselves from the fleet.
OK, well, we've had some questions coming in here about clothing. Len Bose asked, I would like to see the different layers of clothing these crews are wearing on this leg, and also puts this, it would be interesting to watch them get ready for a jibe, then get placed on hold for a while, watching their facial expressions and hearing their comments. That would be interesting. It would be a very cruel thing for us to try and set up, but what we can show you, take a little look at this. This is one of the pictures coming off the boat. This is taken from our onboard reporter. It doesn't show you all the layers, but Sam, there's one or two things that's keen to point out.
I mean, it doesn't show you all the layers because it's that cold out there. No one's stripping down into their thermals, that's for sure. But lots and lots of layers and very little flesh exposed. The air temperature down there is around 5 degrees, wind chill on top of that, so it's about trying to keep yourself fully covered at all times. And then, of course, over the top of that, all your safety gear. You've got your life jacket, your harness lines, and your locator beacons packed within that as well. OK, moving on then. Let's come back to the positions that we're seeing at the moment on the water. So we've got Christian Hasman has asked, I see Brunel sailing closing in on Dongfeng race team. How will that develop? I mean, I think the bigger question as well is what kind of position changes can we expect now that we're getting into the closing stages? Really, really difficult to say at the moment. Brunel are in more breeze, like we said before. There's less wind up in the north. There's a high pressure system there. But as well, that means that Brunel will be sailing into that. So actually, really difficult to see how that's going to affect Brunel. They're much further out to the east where the more breeze is. And we'll have to see over the next 24 hours how they actually kind of pop out in and around Dongfeng.
OK, well, just staying with the tracker on the screen at the moment and what's happening out there on the racecourse, because we also had a question from David Namini, I think, tidal streams in the Bass Strait respect it to arrival times. Who is advantaged and by how much? So what kind of current could we be seeing? Will it make a difference?
The current models we've ran doesn't look too bad at the moment.
OK.
And from the angles that the fleet are coming in at, they're all looking to come in around kind of Cape Otway. So actually they're all, you know, sort of coming in from the same angle. So if the current's against, then it's against the whole fleet. Ultimately, you know, there will be some hold-ups if the current's against at the heads. And we'll have to see how that pans out with our arrival times. At the moment, the range is between kind of 4 hours, so it's difficult to say what the current's exactly going to be doing. OK. All right, well, let's just go on to... no, actually, this is just current. We've got a graphics department at the moment. This is the virtual eye system here. So this is some of the currents that are out there right now. Obviously, quite a lot for the navigators to think about. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be looking very, very closely, especially at these gyros in the current here, and if they can make best use of trying to get around the right side of the gyro and actually make use of a bit of positive current with. I mean, just when you thought it was easy for these navigators, they've got an awful lot on. OK, another question that we've got coming in.
Edward Warren asks, where can we find out which onboard reporter is on board each boat? Well, the crucial thing is actually that changes each leg. I mean, we've got a couple of photos here just to show you if you're not too sure. So on each boat, there is an embedded onboard reporter. They eat, sleep with the crew, but crucially, when the boat comes into port, they may move from a different boat, get all the different perspectives. Also, a lot of you have been asking about the drones. If we just go to the next photo here, so they have got some drones to use, and that's how we're getting some incredible aerial shots. And you've been asking about how it is that they can launch the drones and safely land them. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. We do want to interview some of the onboard reporters and let you know just how it is they do what they do. It is a bit of a mystery to us. Okay, moving on then. So the topic of stealth mode. We've got Brian Milne here. There's two questions here. If they're in stealth mode, can competitors still see them on the AIS? And also, Dean Cook asks, how many times can you use stealth mode? Let's go how many times you can use it.
So stealth mode is once per leg. Any boat's entitled to it, anytime after, or 24 hours after the start, and when the first boat is still outside of 200 nautical miles from the finish. So every boat is entitled to use it at least once. And
then can they still see them on AIS?
Absolutely, they can. Well, AIS, they have to be within range, so that's around 10 nautical miles of the boats, but they will get the position reports in as well every 6 hours and still be able to see the other boats on those position reports.
So if you're in stealth mode, you get all the information, and if you, but your competitors, you will be missing from those position reports.
Absolutely, all your data's blank.
Okay, all right. Question here from Nick Bishop. Are you home for Christmas?
Me personally?
You personally. You personally.
I will be in here for Christmas until the last boat finishes.
Absolutely.
As will the rest of the team here.
Okay. So if we can just put the tracker back up. We've got a question here from Marco Bravoic. He asks, how come Turn the Tide on Plastic and Sun Hun Kai Scallywag are not jibing yet? What do you think their game plan is at the moment? What do we expect?
So the high pressure system that ultimately Mapfre and Dongfeng jibed on earlier today, that's actually starting to track east. So the idea is that Turn the Tide and Scallywag, they need to get a little bit further east to not go into the centre of that high pressure and make sure they got breeze all the way towards Melbourne. So that's what they're looking at, a similar kind of line and angle and strategy to Mapfre and Dongfeng, but obviously coming in a bit later when the high pressure is further in the east.
And it's fairly safe to say that the battle between Turn the Tide on Plastic and Sun Hun Kai Scallywag is far from over.
Absolutely, it's going to be right to the end for sure.
Okay, moving on then, we've got a question here from Gavin Brown. Gavin Brown asks, this is a bit of a technical question about what's on the boats. Gavin Brown asks, what is the white, and I've got to pronounce this correct, I've got to say this correct, protuberance. Very impressed with your knowledge of the English language. I'm sure I've said that wrong. Protuberance, thank you very much, my producer in my ear, at the end of the prow spar on the boats. A knot, an airspeed indicator, an antenna, a parking space. So now we've got a photograph here of the spar at the front, the bow sprit, and what you can see on the edge of it, that white sort of rod that's sort of sticking up. Talk us through what this is for.
Okay, this is way more simple than it looks. It's a big piece of batten, a piece of sail batten that sticks out from the front of a bow sprit.
And I tell you what, actually we can go up to the next picture, because I think we've even got one where it's just a little bit clearer.
There we go. Perfect. And the idea of this, when the boats are jibing, if the sheets are run around the outside of the asymmetrical sail, right out on the front there, it's to prevent the sheet from falling underneath the bow. So hopefully it gets caught by that little batten, doesn't go under the bow, and then you don't end up damaging the bottom of your boat or getting the sheet stuck under the bottom of your boat. And
it really is just, I mean, I've seen some boats just take a wooden spoon and just gaffer tape that onto the end. It looks like it might be some hidden tool, but actually it's just a thing.
It's as simple as that, and but very, very important. The second you're missing that, it can make your jobs really, really difficult in the jibes.
Well, I've got to say, Gavin Brown, keen eyes, well done. OK, moving on to the next one then. We've got Brian Parker who sent in this question. Talk to us about a knockdown and how you recover. We've been seeing quite a few videos, indeed, in this show as well, when the footage came in. This is something the sailors get drilled in pretty well. What's the process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the initial part of a knockdown, you're going to lose steerage. That's the most difficult
because
part.
rudder's out of the water.
The rudders are out of the water. So the key thing you've got to do is try and get that boat flat, try and ease the sails. The key sail that's going to be rounding you up all the time during that is the asymmetrical sail, the sail right up the front. Get that eased, get all your sails twisted off, try and get the bow back downwind, and hopefully she come back upright. Then it's a lot of winding to get the sails back in and back up to full pace.
And I guess this is why we're seeing the sailors getting better and better at it. Okay, we've got a question now about power. Now, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but we can get a photo here to show you something. So if we can just put the next photo up on the screen. Tara Law asks, you touched on this a little bit already, but please explain the electrical power generation and the typical amount of draw each boat would require. So a little bit of a technical, I'm not sure we can be too accurate, but there's one thing happening on the back of this boat that we mentioned yesterday. What is it?
So the hydro generators, the yellow fluorescent yellow piece right off the back of the boat there, that's producing power just from the water alone as it moves past the boat. It's a bit like a windmill, and that will push a fair bit of power into the boat. The key power, however, is still coming from the alternators in the engine.
Okay, well, another topical question then. Lou Hill asks, how much fuel do they carry?
That's specific to each boat. Depending on what the boat thinks they might draw, some boats are running, you know, more systems all the time, or kind of higher resolution on their systems, which draws more power. So actually, it's down to the teams, and they'll be looking very closely, leg per leg, as to the exact amount of fuel they want to carry. Too much, it's too heavy.
Okay, so another gamble, another chance for a little bit of a performance gain, or indeed to make a big mistake. Okay, another question then coming in. Leo van der Hoek asks, how does the keel operate? So how does that swing work?
Okay, so you've got a big ram attached to the keel head, so the keel comes right up through the boat, and there's a pivot on top. Keel ram attaches onto that, and it pushes with all its might right over, and there's button operated from on deck right at the helming position.
And you can power that through electronic motor, you can power that through the engine?
Yeah, absolutely. So the engine will allow a faster cant, so when they're doing the inshore manoeuvres and things like that. Otherwise, you use the electric just to, you know, tweak it when you're sailing along a straight line. Okay, well, we've had some questions coming in about the sails, and we can take a little bit of a look at some of the pictures now of how they're set up. So this is the question from Sinan Ulviar. Sometimes we see the boats with mainsail plus 3 foresails, like we do in that photo there. Do you also have this option in a polar diagram of the boats so that they can compare their performance for ideal speed? Basically, how do the sailors know what the combination that brings about the best performance? Hours and hours and hours of data logging. It's as simple as that. The boats before the race will be going out for 24 hours in a straight line, trying every combination possible and finding that optimum speed for the boat. Once they hit that optimum speed, that's their new polar target for that wind speed and wind angle. And we've got another picture here to show you just another sort of way that they can learn about how to, what works and what doesn't. I mean, essentially, just copy the other boat. Yes, it's key. When the boats are in sight of each other, they are always watching each other. It's, we hear it all the time back from the boats. They're using each other the entire time to learn off and try different things as well. Okay, well, we are getting very near the conclusion of leg 3. Sam, what is the latest ETA for the leaders' Mafre at the moment on that finish line? Good question. So at the moment, the leaders are looking at around 14:30 UTC, which is around 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning Melbourne time. A little bit early in the morning, but I'm sure there'll still be people there to see it. And that's going to be tomorrow, so we really are into those final stages? Yeah, absolutely. So tomorrow evening and early Christmas Day morning. Okay, perfect. Well, there you go. Leg 3 about to wrap up with the Spanish team out in the lead at the moment, but don't rule out some position changes as we close down on the finish line in Melbourne. We will be back tomorrow bringing you the race as it unfolds. Join us then.